The US and the UK governments are going to make you extremely rich if you hold XRP. Now, I've seen a few videos lately about talking about how banks in the US, banks in Europe, including the government of these regions, are working, quote unquote, with Ripple or integrating Ripple payments to carry out cross-border payments. And these are sort of like pieces of breaking news. This is happening, but actually this has been sort of going on for a while. And if you look where the information is, if you know where to find the information, actually the information has been out in the open for damn near a decade now. So I'll give you an example from the Bank of England, which is the central bank that runs financial affairs in this country. Bank of England, on their website, if you just search for Ripple or XRP or any of that sort of stuff, you come across a lot of documentation. This is a pretty interesting one. This was published in the year 2017. Right? That's quite fair. That's nearly a decade ago, right? And this is a proof of concept that they carried out with Ripple. And they talk about it here. They tell you what the results are. They give you, the blueprint, etc. Obviously, 10 years ago, some of the language was slightly different and some of the technology referenced was quite old in terms of what we know today, but it's quite interesting. I mean, if you click on this now, you get this PDF document. A lot of those documentations are easy to download and keep for yourself, or you could just go to the website. I'll leave the link in the description if you're interested. Not financial advice, not legal advice, none of that sort of stuff. But look, FinTech Accelerator Proof of Concept. This was 2017. So this was published in 2017, which kind of tells you that for it to have been published in 2017, the actual work happened before that. And you know how banks are, especially governmental level banks, things move really slowly. For something to have been published in 2017, they probably worked on it for maybe another 10 years, a minimum of 5 years beforehand, right? So I'm not going to read the whole thing, just sort of bullet point it, right? So the background of this is that the Bank of England's FinTech Accelerator works with innovative firms and new technologies. In this proof of concept, POC, we wanted to explore the synchronized movement of two different currencies in two different simulated real-time gross settlements. So that's RTGS systems using Interledger protocol. So basically, back then, they already were working on how to move money across borders, one place to the other, using this new paradigm, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, XRP Ledger, etc., or Ripple payments, whatever you want to call it. There's a blueprint here. That's even more information if you're into it, but it's a little bit too geeky. So here it is, guys. The Bank of England has been operating RTGS since 1996 to provide a safe and immediate way for banks to exchange payments. Since 2006, which is 10 years after that, it has been paying interest on reserves held in RTGS to support the implementation of monetary policy as set by the Monetary Policy Committee. So they've been paying interest on that, right? So obviously they have to keep cash or keep liquidity somewhere and they have to pay interest on that. So that's 10 years worth of interest payments, right? The vision for the renewed service is to set the RTGS blueprint document published in 2017, right? In that vision, the bank explained that it planned to introduce a new functionality to support the synchronization of cash movements made in RTGS with the movement of cash and assets held in other systems in the next generation of RTGS. So basically, I mean, the long and short of that is they want to get rid of that expensive third party or counterparty risk and expense, right? That's costing them a lot of money. This is where the XRP Ledger moves in, Ripple payments, instant payment without counterparty, stash in, bridge currency to move money across borders. So they've been working on this stuff for a long time and they've been partnering with the likes of Ripple for a long time. So this stuff is already by design. It isn't something that is newly happening. It's something that they've been working on, albeit in-house, but the documentation is there, hiding, as it were, in plain sight. There's this even more interesting one called The Future of Money. This was published also by the Bank of England, and it's like a large print. I like this large print guides. They try and sort of use very simple words, not complicate things too much. Actually, I think it's actually a great read for noobs, even for people who know a little bit. I think would find this quite interesting to read, and it explains the vision and sort of puts things in perspective, what the giant banks think about the future of money and their plans for cryptocurrencies. It goes through things like, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, payments. It talks a lot about CBDCs. It tries to alleviate the fears that people have about CBDCs. But of course, that's just them projecting themselves onto you. They know exactly what the powers of the CBDCs are. They go an extra length to sort of address the control issue, the restriction issue, the social credit issue that people are worried about. Again, this would be in the description if you're interested. There's one interesting, let me see if I can find it. So they talk about fintech, they talk about blockchain technology that securely records transactions across networks rather than on a central bank ledger in a way that can't be changed. So that's accurate. And then it talks about payment systems, the future of cash, discusses the fears, UK payments made by cash, how it's dwindled over the years. I still love cash, to be honest. Large digital print. Again, you can, if you have like a e-reader, this actually looks really good on like an e-reader or like an iPad mini or whatever. So you can take it away with you and read it while you're having your coffee. Oh, it looks okay on a phone too. But this is a really good read, and I'm actually quite surprised that they issued this, because normally these people are quite secretive with their information. Obviously, a lot of things have changed since this was published. I have highlighted this for a minute. A lot of things have changed since this was published. Obviously, new legislation has come out. Crypto assets are being termed crypto assets rather than currencies. So it works now like property or capital here in the UK and some parts of Europe. I don't know how it works in America. So your gains are calculated just like gains on a house or painting or something like that, and the taxes are calculated in that respect as well, except of course crypto assets are a lot more trackable than value of your house. I know a house is stationary and it's registered, but crypto assets are particularly scrutinized here in this country. By the way, again, not financial advice. If you're worried about taxes and stuff, there's always a link in my description. I never talk about it because people already know about it, I think, and it's for the free tax software that I use. It's not just a tax software per se. It's also a tracking software, and the reason why I like it is that it works in several countries. So you pick your country and it adjusts its tracking or tax generation, etc., to the country where you live. So mine is the UK, so it controls the tax information. It shows me, alerts me things like, the tax year is coming to an end. You might want to sort of, do things like loss harvesting, etc., just things like that. Because if you go over the end of the tax year, not tax advice by the way, and you haven't harvested the loss, it might still register you as having made a profit from before. It doesn't calculate the profit against the loss that you made somewhere else, and you might end up paying more tax than you should or could. So these things are nuanced, takes attention. This free software really helps. And if you do need to generate taxes into the government, then you have to think about buying a plan or whatever. So that link is an affiliate link. Who knows, if you use that and you end up buying something in the future, I might or might not get a cut. So that's how affiliate links work. So it's in the description. It's termed Coinly, free tax software, whatever. Anyway, back to this. So you've probably heard of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, or XRP, says that. These type of crypto assets, a digital representation of value. They have no physical form and are only stored or exchanged electronically. So yeah, again, millions since then. It talks about all these quite interesting things. I was going to show you guys where it goes in on CBDCs, but it's the usual, right? So it's already started here. What is the digital pound? So Bank of England is exploring the idea of a central bank digital currency, CBDC, issued by the Bank of England. Just like banknotes, it would be a new way for households and businesses to pay. So basically, it goes on to explain that these are just basically stable coins, but rather than controlled by so-called centralized private entities, this is controlled by the United Kingdom government, and it's backed by the Bank of England. So compares it with digital payments, and it says that its level of privacy and risk are pretty much the same as any electronic payments at the moment. But again, the backing and the guarantee are by the Bank of England rather than your bank, right? Which are obviously also regulated by the Bank of England and Financial Services Commission or something like that. Will they track my spending? You would use the digital pound through a virtual wallet. Any personal data that would be shared with the wallet's provider and not seen by the Bank of England or government. Sure. That's what Facebook said before they sold all your data to the highest bidder. or any bidder at all for that matter. Would a digital pound be worth the same as a banknote? Yes, it says basically it's a stable coin. And then it goes to this, the funniest part, where it goes actually into some of anti-CBDC sentiments and tries to explain them away. It talks about the Apple iPhone launched in 2007 with 15 apps, now 1.8 million apps, basically telling you that, you know, there are billions of apps now around and some of them are scams, blah, blah, blah. And it's actually quite helpful. Again, I'll leave this really relatively lengthy book, yet a very good read, a PDF format and large print, in the description. But yes, the Bank of England is working with Ripple. Yes, they are looking at using, you know, Ripple and XRP ledger technology for cross-border payments. It's the same in the United States, and it's not new. It's something that they've been working on a long time now. I don't know if you guys remember R3, that whole consortium. Again, these guys were linked with Ripple technology back in the day. Some things happened, people went their separate ways, but the technology persists. Not financial advice. See you in the next one.